Welcome to Expert Table Talks, a series of the European Blind Union, brought to you by the EBU Braille Working Group.
Hello everyone, this is Rainer Delgado from Germany, from the Braille Working Group of the European Blind Union, and we are starting our third roundtable about the use of Braille displays. Today we want to talk about controlling your device from your display. And I'm sitting here in front of my laptop, and in front of the laptop there is the Braille display, and it's about, let's say, 15 or nearly 20 centimeters distance from the keyboard of the laptop to the Braille cells. So if I'm writing something on the keyboard and I want to read something, I have to move my hands quickly a quite long distance. It makes many things easier if I can control some special functions directly from my Braille display and not have to move from the computer to the Braille display very often. This is a bit what we are talking about this evening in our session here. We have some interesting topics. The first the first half hour, we will talk about mobile devices. We have Apple devices and Android devices, and there are also many features you can use to control your device from your Braille display. And then the other 30 minutes, we will talk about controlling your computer from your Braille display. In the other 30 minutes, we will talk with German Braille display producers about the concept they have to make it easier to control your device from your Braille display. As an example, what a special Braille display also can help you to manage your computer or your mobile device. So let's start with our iOS devices. I think many blind people use an iPhone or some even an iPad. And with VoiceOver, you have a lot of opportunities. First of all, using also Braille on your device. If you use Braille with your Braille display, you have a Braille keyboard on your display, and the keys of the Braille keyboard you can use to control your, let's say, iPhone. And there are some very general things, like if you want to scroll your Braille display from left to right, you can use the dots 2 and 5 of your Braille display. And if I say 2 or 5, I always mean you have to use them together with the space bar or with the key number 9. So if you have 2 bars and at the bottom of the Braille display, so not only one space bar, then it is called key or dot number 9 and dot 0. So if you use, let's say, the space bar together with dot 2, you pan your Braille display to the left. And if you use dot 5, you pan it to the right. Then swapping to the right or the left on your display on the smartphone, you can make this with the dots 1 and 4. 1 for swapping to the left and 4 for swapping to the right. And if you are working with the rotor, you have this vertical movements on the display. And for these, you can use the dot 3 and 6. So 3 for going upwards or 6 for going down. For example, if you have in your rotor the selection of the language of your synthetic speech, you can go with 6, one language further, and with dot 3, one language behind. And if you want to change the rotor function, you use dot 2 and 3 or 5 and 6 to go forward or to go backwards. And what I find nice in this concept is you don't need to remember the dot numbers you have to press on your Braille display or your Braille keyboard. You just can keep in mind how the Braille sign looks that you have to enter in your keyboard. And in some cases, it's even letters that you have to press. For example, if you want to go back, so you want to go to the last website that you have visited in Safari, You can make this on the display with this set gesture with 2 fingers. And this back gesture you can make with the Braille display by pressing B and the space bar. So dot 1 and 2. And this is the B, and it's like back. And the same is, for example, for delete. For delete, you can, of course, use a dot 7 and space to delete the last letter you have written. But you can also use the D, so dot 1, 4, and 5. Or for enter, you can use dot 8 and the space bar, but also dot 1 and 5, like the letter E. And if you want to read text from the position where you are, it's what you make with sweeping 2 fingers down. There you use the letter R, like read, together with the spacebar always. So you have a lot of options which you can make with the keys of your Braille display. And I will name some more, but there are many more than I will tell you now. And we put on Living Braille, on the article of our recording of today, a link where you can find every key combination and every command you can make with your Braille display. What I find very helpful is the combination to go to the first or to the last element of the screen you are in at the moment. For example, if you're on the home screen and you have this dock bar at the bottom with, for example, mail and Safari and telephone, you can go to the end and then backwards to find the element you want to use in this area of the screen. And to go to the end of the screen, you use the dots 4, 5, and 6 together with the spacebar. And to go to the first element, you use spacebar together with 1, 2, 3, like with an L. When you want to edit text, you also have some options you can use, like this copy and paste. And it's a bit like you have on your regular computer with the X plus spacebar, you cut something. With C plus spacebar, you copy, and with V and spacebar, you paste. And if you want to mark the whole text, you use the 4 lower dots, so 2, 3, 5, and 6. And then your whole text is marked, and then you can, for example, cut it and insert it in another application. And to mark special chapters of your text, you can, of course, use this marking option in the rotor, but you can also go, for example, in the rotor to characters, words, or lines, and then you use the dots 2, 5, and 6 to mark the next element. So the next letter, the next word, or the next line. And if you use 2, 3, and 5 together with spacebar, you mark the last character or the last word or the last line. Or you unmark things if you have marked too much. And one last interesting option, what you can do with your Braille display is to select the Braille table of your Braille output. And this you do with the G. So it's dot 1, 2, 4, and 5. And there you can use all tables that you have activated. Like, for example, German uncontracted Braille, German contracted Braille, English uncontracted Braille, and so on. And as I said, there are some commands more which you can use. And I find it very helpful when I use the iPhone together with my Braille display. I don't have to change from my Braille display to the display of the iPhone so many times, and it makes it much more convenient to work. Do you have any comments or questions on this? Then please raise your hand and you get then the question to unmute yourself so you can speak.
Thank you, Rainer. We don't have any questions just at the moment. If you'd like to raise your hand, you can do that by pressing Alt-Y if you are on a Windows computer, or you can press Option-Y if you're on a Mac. If you're on the smartphone app or the tablet app, you can find a raise hand button hopefully on your screen, or if it's not on your screen immediately, then there should be a more button. If you double tap on there, you'll find it under there, or a reactions button. Double tap on there and you'll find it there. We have a hand from James Bowden. So I'm going to ask you on this particular occasion, James, to unmute. Hello.
I got it, yes. I wonder if you could talk about the help facility, the key describer. You can actually try out different combinations on your Braille display and find out what they do.
You can activate this help mode. At the moment, I don't know the key combination on your Braille display, but you can, for example, tap twice with 4 fingers on your display, and then you have this this help mode. You can deactivate it again with tapping twice with 4 fingers. And then you can do any command on your Braille display and it will spoken out what it would cause. And that's also interesting for Braille displays with more keys. So in most Braille displays do have more keys than this Braille keyboard to write. And then you can test the other keys of your Braille display and find out what they cause on your iPhone.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. And I believe it might be space with dots 1 and 3. I always think of it as space with the letter K for keyboard, to do keyboard help, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. You may be right, yeah.
Yeah. So we have 2 more hands up, which have come up while James was speaking. We first of all have Michael, and I can't pronounce your surname, Michael Merdes or something like this. And then we have Rudolph. So Michael, I'm going to come to you now. And the same with James. You should have, we've asked you to unmute. There should be a prompt on your screen.
Hello, good evening. It's a very general question, but kind of thinking about what is the use case to use your Braille display with a mobile device. With the computer, I think it's quite obvious to me what you want to do, but what do you just maybe give some examples what you use your Braille display with your phone for?
Oleg, do you want to answer on this?
I think many of us can give use cases, but just for me, so my name is Oleg. I'm here in Germany as well. I use the Braille display with the phone all the time. Well, not all the time. I'd say 60% of the time. And the phone may be on my desk or it may be in another room. But the Braille display allows me to control the phone entirely, completely. So to send, receive messages, to browse the web, to work with apps, and to just use Braille only without speech. Another use case is on public transport, where I don't want to be going with my fingers for the phone touchscreen. I'll be just using the Braille display. But I'm wondering about it, actually, even from people in this conference call. Maybe those of us who do that are just like, old timers, and we haven't grasped the whole beauty of working with a touch screen. So I was wondering if other people are just as, just basically, I couldn't imagine using my phone if I hadn't had the Braille display in many cases, like in private setting, in a meeting. But I'm wondering if many of the people on the call feel the same.
Thank you, Oleg.
All right. Well, if anybody has any responses to Oleg there, feel free to raise your hand and give those. We're going to come to Rudolf next. After Rudolf, we're going to come to Felix Grützmacher. I hope I pronounced that roughly accurately.
It was accurately, yeah.
Very good. Practicing my European accents there, my German accent. Rudolf, you should have a prompt on your screen now.
Actually, there's something I've been missing in VoiceOver since the very beginning, both on Mac and iPhone or iPad or whatever. And it's simple block operations that are available on Windows in JAWS in NVDA. In NVDA, you press Insert F9, that's the beginning of the block, then you move the cursor wherever you want, and press Insert F10, and everything is marked, and you can do anything with it. And either I'm stupid or it really is not possible to be done in voiceover. So both on Mac and iPhone, you need to select by characters, words, lines, pages or whatever, but you can't do this simple block operation, which is available both in JAWS and NVDA. And that's something I'm really missing. So either anybody here would tell me that it's possible, or that's something that Apple should definitely remedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudolf. I think it does not exist in iOS. If it exists in Mac computers, I don't know. And it's very helpful. I think also I use it very much on my computer, but on smartphone we don't have it. But what we could add to our report of this meeting, there is a mail address where you can send your wishes, what should be improved in VoiceOver. And they care about such requests, and sometimes they put it inside the system. So it's worth to do it, to request such things.
Marvellous. Thank you very much. We're next going to come to Felix. And after Felix, at the moment, we have no more hands raised. So, Felix, we've got the prompt up for you to unmute, and we've now got you. Hello.
Hello. I wanted to answer the question, why use a Braille display when the touch screen is available, that was posed. And there are a couple of reasons. First one, of course, being it's a very discreet way. For example, when you're on the train or when colleagues are around you, you have this possibility to, without creating any noise pollution around you, and also without risking privacy, you can just read the text that you have there. I mean, of course, there are headphones, but those then add another layer of audio to your environment, which maybe you don't want at that moment because you're sitting somewhere on the train. You want to be able to pay attention to your environment. And of course, the Braille literacy aspect. I mean, sometimes just reading a book that you have on your iPhone, it makes a whole lot of difference if you can read it character by character with your fingers, if you can find out how things are spelled. I think those are two very major reasons why, even though the touchscreen is available, the Braille display could be the better choice.
Thank you, Felix. I agree fully with you. Yeah, so let's come to Android. I think there are less people using it, less blind people, even with the Braille display, because Android also has the fame that the Braille support is not so good like in iOS. But Michael uses it, and maybe he can tell us a lot of things that may convince us to use our Braille display also with an Android device.
Good evening. My name is Michal. I'm from Slovakia. I would like to speak a bit about possibilities you have in Android phones, because at least here in Slovakia, or I could say in Central Europe, there are, well, I don't have statistics, but I know a lot of Android users, blind users. So this question was for us quite important to investigate. Getting to Android, Rainer told it correctly. There was not such a good Braille support in previous years, and it was done by Brailleback. It was a kind of application you had to install and then fill out somehow the settings with your Braille display and so on. Just last year, there was a huge improvement in a way of Braille usage, not only with the Braille display, but also Braille on-screen usage. So actually, now we are in a stage where we can say that the Braille support is much better in Android, since Android 14, 15, somewhere around there, and of course a new version of TalkBack, which is the screen reader of Android phones. I don't want to get too much into the connection issues because we spoke about this in the first session of our table talk. So I will just say that there are some issues still. It seems that TalkBack is using BRLTTY somewhere in the background in that environment. because it always gives you the same sound as it was used in Braille back some time ago. So I think it is just somehow connected. There are, of course, advantages of TalkBack having this implemented inside, and I will talk about it later. But if you manage to connect your Braille display with TalkBack, there are settings for such a thing. In TalkBack settings, there is Braille display, and there you can search for Bluetooth devices around. And if you find your Braille display, you can just connect it, pair it through TalkBack settings. Once you have Braille display connected, there are some more settings to check and to make them work as you wish them to do. Mostly there are languages, which language or Braille code you prefer for input and output of your Braille display. And then there are some very few advanced settings or something you can customize, but there are just a rate of cursor linking and then automatic scrolling and so on. If we speak about controlling your device, which is the topic of today, I don't use iOS, and I noticed there are similar things in both operating systems, but also different things, which is actually I find it quite awkward that somehow we did not find a simple solution which would work on both devices the same way. I tested all with Tollback with the Orbit Reader and with Focus. With both, we have entry of 8.Braille, so all the gestures you can use in TalkBack were relying on input of 8 dots. I don't want to speak about exact dots because it's quite difficult to remember all those combinations, but once you get it under your hands and you feel it and you test it for a while, it's very quick to grasp it. There are not so many of those gestures. And the most important is that you can find them in those TalkBack settings. So for instance, there are combinations with .7 to do backward movement and with .8 to do forward movement. And then, of course, there are also those chords, commands, I would say, base and something. And for those, there are space and H to go to your home screen, space and N to go to notifications and so on. You can also use these kind of combinations, forward and backward, with .8 and .7, with letters H or T to browse the websites. So there are particular commands you can really learn from these settings, and then you can use them in your phone. I was able to edit text with both Braille displays. It's actually quite easy, and you can use, again, chord commands with space, .3 and .6 to go by letters, .2 and 5 by words, and so on. There are similarities with other systems in this case, but you check all these combinations because it can even be different for different Braille displays. I really don't know how it works with Braille displays with 6 dots input. TalkBack is changing these commands in settings according to a Braille display you are using. I stumbled upon one issue I didn't figure out, and maybe this is worth to mention. If you are, let's say, moving through settings of your phone, there are, I don't know, maybe 27 items, and they don't fit on one screen. You have to scroll the screen to get to the bottom of settings. And I didn't find any combination of dots which you can use for quick scrolling. You have to press and press and press and press combination to move to the next item. The only way you can actually do some workaround is to always press space and dots 4, 5, 6, which is actually, I think, one of the cases when it worked the same on iOS.
Yeah.
And then you have to move again one item next, and then again press space and 4, 5, 6 to get to the bottom of the screen. And you can simply, but anyway, I didn't find any scrolling possibility, like when you want to really quickly scroll a whole screen. What is nice, you can move, they call it windows, although there are not actually windows, but different areas of your screen. You can move to the bottom panel and the notification panel and the main screen with one shortcut. So this is quite helpful once you, for example, lose focus or something. You can quickly find your way back. Very shortly, I will mention also one Slovak product. It's a complete replacement of user interface for mobile phones, where we created also Braille support for Braille displays, and it works also with HID protocol. It's called Corvus, and it's really something unusual for people who are used to use iPhone or Android phone, because in this environment you work or you use gestures with a combination of volume buttons, which changes the behavior of gesture. And in this environment, there are completely all those real commands different than in Android or iOS. So again, one case more where we didn't find a way which would be somehow general, or we could call it general approach to controlling the device with the Braille display. So this is very quick review of controlling Android phone. If you have any comments, I would be very glad to hear them, or I will appreciate to have any addition you have if you use Android phones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have two hands. One of them is Felix, who we've heard from before, so we'll hear from you very shortly, Felix. The very first hand that came up was, I think it's Liel Ben Simon. Excuse the pronunciation there. Liel, I've asked you to unmute, and I think we've got you now. Hello.
Hello, hey. I want to add a note with Android because I've tried with my Braille display. Regarding the heat connection with my brilliant BI 40X and TalkBack 16, I think, or 15, there is an option to connect with cable or Bluetooth with page ID protocol. It works fine.
Thank you. Well, we had a complete session about these protocols. It was our first table talk, and maybe there is very nice explanation about all the connections with the phones and these and computers. And yeah, well, I just mentioned this HID protocol because I had a problem to connect Orbit and Focus with HID protocols.
Yeah, and without wanting to go too far into the weeds of the first roundtable again, it's possible that it's supported with one type of connection and not another. So it's possible, as Liel was saying, that it works just fine on USB, assuming that you have the right version of Android and assuming you have the right version of TalkBack, and that's a big assumption. But even if it works on USB, it may not work over Bluetooth. So there's all sorts of interesting anomalies there. But it's good to know, Liel, that you managed to get it to work at least a little bit. We have a hand up from Felix. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
My hand has now become kind of redundant because it was the same thing that I wanted to say, that we have observed that the HID works in the latest betas of Android with TalkBack via Bluetooth. But of course, HID isn't always the same. There are a lot of ways to implement it, to do the descriptors. So it may not work equally well for all devices at all times.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. Thank you very much for that. We have a hand up from James Bowden.
Sure. I just wanted to come back to the why do you want to use your Braille display with your phone question. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is actually inputting text. Some people will find it so much more convenient to write using the buttons on their Braille display than, for example, fiddling around with a little on-screen keyboard, or dictation if it's a noisy environment, or some people are not happy with, for example, the Braille screen input.
Yeah, absolutely. I second this because I have friends who, well, in a way, we are forced to use touch screens. Of course, there are few button phones, but anyway, mostly there are touch screens to be used. And I have a lot of friends who are simply not familiar with gestures. They don't like to use touchscreen. If they are doing something more than just reading SMS or very short messages, but if you want to really edit your mail and do actually your agenda, for example, I absolutely think Braille display is the way how to do it quickly and efficiently.
I use sometimes even a normal QWERTZ keyboard also with Braille display together with my smartphone, and then it's a bit like working at a computer. So I can type like on a normal keyboard and use also some very helpful commands for navigating and controlling my device. And the writing of text is much more convenient than using the Braille keyboard in my perspective.
Thank you.
So we have another raised hand. Maybe we take Michael, and after we go to Oleg, who will tell us a bit of controlling your computer with JAWS and your Braille display.
Hello. First of all, thank you for all the answers to my previous question. I have one Android question. I used to have an Android device when I learned Braille, and I tried to connect it to my phone in order to practice reading on my Braille display. But I ran into the problem that I couldn't read the longer text very well. Either it didn't display properly, or it slowed the phone down to a crawl. And I was just wondering if there are any good apps on Android with which you can actually read like ebooks or longer documents.
Well, the thing is that I tried TalkBack and Braille just for this session to be true, because I use this Slovak version of user interface I told about. I suppose the problem was about scrolling the screen, and that's why it may have been a problem. And I really don't know if there is an application which would be a solution for this. If someone on the call knows such application, I would be glad to hear it. But I used our built-in application in this environment I spoke about, and there it was not an issue. And then again, it depends when you have been trying this, Michael, because a huge improvement in this case was just rolled out last year. So maybe you should give it a try again, maybe.
Maybe I'm switching back, but I would have to try it first.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Michael, and everyone for this point. So we don't have to be afraid about using Android also with our Braille display. And Braille is useful and makes fun also with Android. Yeah, and then we have the work at our computer. As I said in the beginning, my most important point is that the Braille display is so far away from my laptop keyboard. So I also used some definitions for commands to be able to control more features of my computer from my Braille display. And I think Oleg is very skilled in this topic and can explain us what you all can do when you use JAWS to control your computer by your Braille display.
Well, thank you, Rainer. Once again, my name is Oleg. I'm very happy to be here. I have to make a distinction here first between the professional and the personal, because professionally, I work for the company called Vispero, which is the company that makes JAWS. But I am taking part in this webinar on a personal level, so I'm not representing anybody at this point. So just sharing a few impressions. And I'd like to handle it a bit differently from what we heard from previous speakers today. I understand that Rainer and others will want to add something to what I'd like to share here. But I'd like to begin with a personal story. And I'll show you in a moment why that story is important. There are some ways to approach the Braille display commands that will actually lead us nowhere. There are ways that are much more productive. So Here's my personal story. I became a Braille display user quite early, and one of my first note takers, even without a Braille display at that point, the first note taker, I should say, for me, was the Braille and Speak. And of course, there were others before that, but the true note taker was a Braille and Speak. The true screen reader. It's kind of funny. My first true screen reader with some Braille support was something called PC Master. If anybody still remembers the name of the company that made PC Master, you can just raise your hand, just for the fun of it. Their second screen reader was Windows Master, that went nowhere, but anyway. And with those displays, the Braille Speak, the Braille Lite, and the PC Master screen reader, I learned a certain set of Braille commands. Then came ASAW and JAWS and others, and JAWS was getting Braille support, and Virgo and Cobra from Germany were having Braille support, and other screen readers and other displays. And here was a problem. I had learned one set of Braille commands. They were so deeply ingrained in me that when my Braille display changed and my screen reader changed, and I love Perkins Braille keyboards, but changing the Braille display and changing the screen reader meant learning a totally different set of Braille commands. I mean, talking even about the basics, okay? To a quote-unquote normal person, dots 4 and 5 and 6 will move you by respectively line, word, character, forward. Dots 1 to 3, the same units backwards with space bar, of course. Not with every screen reader, not with every Braille display, not for all of us. And then you have to relearn. And then you change screen readers. And then you change Braille displays. And then you also notice that very often the way the Braille commands are presented is in the form of, well, learn this table. There's a huge table of Braille commands, and you've got to learn them. It's like your maybe early school years learning a foreign language. Here are 30 German words or Greek words or Latin words, and you don't care why you need them. You just need them to read the exercise in that same lesson or to translate some words or sentences, and then you can safely forget them. Doesn't bear any resemblance to reality. It's sometimes the way we teach those Braille displays, even the way we teach them to ourselves, is exactly that kind of approach. We like, Debbie and somebody else raise hands, will say, oh, can you just send the name of that company who made PC Master? Send it in the chat, just for the fun of it, if anybody remembers. Okay, so we think of learning the commands. I like to start with a question, though. What do you want to do with your Braille display? That's exactly the question Rainer asked. What are the commands that are most important to you? And question number 2, if you have some experience already, how would you like to carry out those commands? How would you like to execute those commands? So you don't start with learning stuff that you probably won't need. Well, of course you learn like how do you move forward, how you move backward, the basics, okay? But then the question is, what do I really need? So I've had quite a number of displays during the last few years, to put it this way. And on all of my displays, I can normally do some strange things. For example, if I want to send Control-C to my computer, I will just do X with spacebar followed by C. Or when I want to do Windows R, I do W with spacebar followed by R. Or if I want to send Alt F, I do dots 3-5 chord or 3-5 with spacebar followed by F. Why these commands? Well, don't ask. Are they the most convenient? Are they the best? No. These are the ones that my hands remember. How do I get them? Well, that's the fun part. The Braille displays and the screen readers are extremely configurable under Windows. And if you know what you want your Braille displays to do and how you want them to be driven, you can make the Braille display into your terminal. And you can then keep the settings and move them to another device. And actually, in a couple of months, JAWS will make it much, much easier, but that's a subject for another conversation. There are two main tools in JAWS to make that possible. The first one is Keyboard Manager. And we don't think of Keyboard Manager too often, but Keyboard Manager is the place to find out what exists, like what is available, and to make changes that you want to do. And I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna open JAWS. In JAWS, I'm gonna do insert F2 and K for Keyboard Manager. Why do we want to go there? Because
K, Keyboard Manager, Enter, List View.
That's where our keyboard commands actually live. And at first it may seem kind of cryptic, but that's your first tool where you can edit and set up the things that you want your Braille display to do. So go to Default.
Control-Shift-D. Down cell insert plus space. Home. Accept audio. Accept.
I'm at the top of the list. We're not going to go through the entire manager, but we're going to show you how you can change the Braille keys. You can change the Braille key assignments. The very first item in that list is the script that's called
Accept Audio Call None 1 of 1000.
Accept Audio Call. Well, we're not sure right now what it does, but if we go down,
Accept Phone Link Call None.
Accept Phone Link Call. Phone Link is an app that allows you to synchronize your computer with your phone, and you can accept a phone call. There is no key. There's nothing to accept that phone call for you. There's nothing for you to make that happen, and you can assign the key right here in this Keyboard Manager. What you do is you press Control A for assign or add.
Add keystroke dialog. Script name. Accept phone link call. Assign to. Alt plus A.
And it just says assign to. And what you do is you press the key on your Braille display.
New unread messages.
That you want to use to carry out that command. You have to think about that key because there's a good chance that the key is already assigned. Now, for example, I'm going to press something on my Braille display right now.
Add keystroke dialog. Script name. Accept phone link call. Keystroke and use dialog. Braille dots 456 chord is already assigned to bottom of file in C.
Yeah, of course. So what I did, I said, okay, let me press dots 456 with spacebar on my Braille display to receive a phone call. And it said, well, are you really sure you want to do this? Because it's already assigned to moving to bottom of file.
Scott Edwards had
No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to reassign that. I'm going to choose something else. And at some point, you will get to a key that will work for you.
Stuart Deadman has
and the key that will actually make things happen. If you go down through this dialog, through this Keyboard Manager,
activate search, active moves, Braille.
You will get many scripts that you have no idea what they are, what they mean.
Adjust Braille options none.
But adjust Braille option. That's a script that will bring up a dialog allowing you to quickly adjust the option of how things are represented on the Braille display. And it has no Braille command assigned to it. So again, you can press Control A, you can press the key you want to assign this to, and that Braille command will be assigned to whatever script or whatever function you want to perform. But the point here is that we can basically go through the Keyboard Manager and assign things to JAWS functions, and these functions will now be achievable or reachable with specific Braille commands. Now, what I personally like to do, what is important to me? Well, first of all, I work with several language profiles, and I like a quick command to switch between those language profiles. There is a command that's assigned for some displays, not for all. I don't particularly like that command. I like another one. So I get that assigned. I like working with blocks, but to start and stop selection with blocks, like on Focus Braille displays, you use Shift 2, the right shift with cursor routers and so on. To me, well, I understand why. I understand why it's comfortable for some people. It's just not comfortable to me. I reassign it. And in general, my principle is this. I start using an application or I start doing something. And if I notice that a command is not comfortable, yet I use it quite often, I will go and see if there's a better keyboard combination to assign. By the way, do not be afraid of overriding keyboard combination, especially if it's something that you're not using. But before overriding a keyboard combination, make sure to know exactly what you're overriding. My point of saying it is this. JAWS Screen Reader and NVDA, by the way, where you configure gestures, makes it very easy to configure the Braille display support to your liking. It may be that you're using the Braille display the way nobody else does. It may be your combinations are not obvious to others, but that's your tool, and you want to configure that. And finally, but that's a different stage. In JAWS, there's a tool called Braille In, and you can simulate things like Control, Alt, Windows, Shift, the function keys. You can simulate them from the Perkins Braille display keyboard. There is a way, actually there are ways. For older displays, there's one way. For newer displays, there's a different way. But there are ways to change that, to customize Braille In commands to your own liking. And I'm not going to go into this because we're out of time, and that is a lot more complicated than working with the Keyboard Manager. So Keyboard Manager is definitely the first thing to master. But if you get to the point where you say, oh yeah, to simulate the Windows key, I press .4 with .8, can we do better than that? Yes, we do. We can do better than that. And there is information about this. If you can find it, perfect. If you cannot, just send me an email. But please, please do tell me which Braille display you're using, because the answer to that question will determine where in the file hierarchy we need to be making changes. So make your Braille display work for you and make it work the way you like it, rather than learning innumerable keyboard combinations for each new Braille display. That's my conclusion for today. Well, thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you very much, Oleg. And I have to say, you're a braver man than me. I know what some of those files are to change the JAWS Braille In commands, and I've never had the guts to tell a user where those files are, because if you get those wrong, you're into all sorts of trouble. But yeah, Oleg,
you're screwed. Yeah, you're screwed.
You really are. So this is not something to be taken lightly. We've got a number of hands coming up now. We've not had too much interaction in the chat today. We have had a comment about Android come in the chat slightly late, so we'll come back to that once we've dealt with all of these hands that have come up. We have a hand from Debbie, a hand from Liam, and we have a hand from Vivian. I suggest we take all of these and then we'll take a time check and see where we get to. But Debbie, this is slightly different to a Brailleist's call. I have to ask you to unmute and you have to accept a prompt. So hopefully that prompt has come through. And yes, it has. We've got you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Matthew. Oleg, it's a great presentation, as always. My question, first of all, a comment. I liked your comment about the Braille table, because if you're in an iOS device and you don't know these commands, and if I've used 4 different Braille displays and 3 different screen readers in my time with Braille, and sometimes you forget, or you think it's this and it's not. And you go into the table, and the first thing you do is read them all and think, I'm not going to remember that. I think you can search in that menu, and I'm honestly not sure if you can. I guess the more important thing, though, is And I'm asking the same question about the keyboard manager. Is there a way to set things back to their defaults? I know there is in the voiceover settings in your Braille display, but I'm not sure if there is in the keyboard manager. And heavens, I think there should be, because I've had to reinstall JAWS because I thought I was being clever. And alas, I was not. So, and I didn't, when I did reinstall, I deliberately did not merge my settings because I figured I'd be right back where I started. So those are my questions and comments. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I'll start, and Matthew may continue because that's a huge question. First of all, when you make some changes in Keyboard Manager and in other utilities, the changes are not saved to the shared folder. Instead, they're saved to your user folder. And if you can just go to your user folder, there's a menu item for that in JAWS. You can find your default.jkm in your user folder. And that's where your changes live. I mean, there's, unless you wanted to do it otherwise, so by default, they're going to be there. There are a couple of things you can do there. One thing is just delete it, delete the default JKM or the application JKM files if that's per application setting. But a better thing is to open that with Notepad and take a look at what you see there. Because what you're going to see there are your commands, and you will see how they're formed. And by the way, you will also see some stuff that you can then try with default.jkm to extend your learning and to modify more. So suppose you change 2 or 3 commands. Go to your user folder, go to your default JKM. They're right there. You don't like any of them? Okay, just go ahead, delete any of them. And they're no longer going to be used. But that's your playground before playing with default.jkm, where there's much more to work with.
Thank you, Oleg.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add to that before we move on probably to the next hand is that users are not the only people to mess about with user settings. So a lot of people, certainly in the English-speaking market, use a tool called Lisi, which is written by Brian Hartgen. There's a few other of Brian's tools like JSay and things like that. Those tools, or any third-party scripts for that matter, also by default install into your user folder. So if you're going to make serious changes to your key maps and you've got third-party scripts like Lisi installed, make a backup of your settings before you start, because if you delete your default.jkm file and you've got Lisi installed, then all of your Lisi functionality will go away. So, I mean, you can fix that by reinstalling Lisi, of course, but just be aware that you might not be the only people playing around with those files. So backup, make a backup of your user folder before you start.
So we have no monopoly there, huh? That's terrible.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next 2 questions, and then let's go to our other guests.
Thank you. Yes. So, Liam, we're coming to you, and we've got you. Hello.
Hello. It's good to be here. So I had a question, and it's kind of a little bit more about NVDA, but I was wondering, does NVDA have a similar way to assign your own commands? And would that be a useful thing for someone who's not very good at computer screen readers?
Let me say yes. So I'm not so very skilled in NVDA too, but I looked at it, and you have this keyboard manager too in NVDA.
Yeah.
You don't find so many commands there like in JAWS.
Yeah.
And I think the most difficult thing for me was I wanted to put the cursor keys on the joystick, which I have on my Braille display, and in JAWS, and I didn't know which command is this. And then it is, for example, the cursor or the arrow key right in this keyboard manager of JAWS is say next character. But how can you know this if you're not a really expert in this? And I think it's the same in NVDA. If you have special things, and that's what Oleg said, you have to think about what do I need for my personal use. then you have to find an expert and ask. So to say, I want to make this and that with my Braille display with NVDA. How can I put this in the keyboard manager? And then maybe you find an answer, maybe not.
Yeah. Is yours generally better with connecting with a Braille display and working successfully?
See what or hear what Adi Kushnir and others said in our first webinar, which is recorded and available on livingbraille.eu, because there are facets to answering this question.
Yeah, and it's recorded. You can find it on YouTube, on our Living Braille YouTube channel.
Yeah, I've listened to it. It was great. I don't think I picked it up, so I'll have to re-listen to it again.
I also think that question is a difficult question to answer at the moment because there's a lot of developments going on in the NVDA and Braille space, thinking of things like the Braille Note Evolve and the Optima, and we're not entirely sure how many of those developments are going to make their way into NVDA and how many are going to be ring-fenced for specific products. But potentially we may see some significant Braille developments in NVDA if either of those companies decide to donate their code back to NVDA.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. We have a hand from Vivian and Petra. So I'm not sure whether we're going to get Vivian or Petra today or both, but we've sent the prompt and hopefully you should be able to unmute. There we go. We've got you. Hello.
Hello, you've got Vivian.
Hello, Vivian.
Yes, my question, it has to do with finding out which keys are which on keyboards. I find that the most manuals for Braille displays are very difficult to read when it comes to, for instance, seeing exactly what the Braille display does with JAWS. It's very easy for the panning to the left, panning to the right, and so on. But it gets difficult if you want sort of more advanced features. And I often go in the JKM files to see what's happening. And I always have the problem of knowing which keys are named as what in these files. And I find they're often very differently named from in the manuals. And in the end, I go through, I just try assigning the key to something until I've done the whole keyboard, the whole Braille keyboard. Do you have any tips?
You cannot imagine, but I'm doing the same thing. Sometimes I do like to use help mode, so insert 1 and press on something, but that's not what you're asking, because some of those keys will not respond in the way you like. Some Braille displays, or most Braille displays, do have their own help mode. But in the HID world, you can get things like key 57 or key 59. And who knows what these are. So sometimes, yes, it's literally assigning and taking a look at what happens, researching.
Okay, thank you.
So the way that I deal with this, and I realise this is not my presentation, so I'm sorry to just jump
please,
in.
Go forward.
But the way that, because I have the same problem, the way that I deal with this is twofold. First of all, in most cases, what I'll do is I'll go into Keyboard Manager and I'll find a script, just any random script. It doesn't actually matter. I'll press Control A to assign a keystroke to that script.
Exactly.
And I'll press a button on the Braille display and it will tell me what button I've pressed. And it will probably also tell me that it's assigned to something else. And that's fine because I don't really care it's assigned to something else. I just care what the name of the button is. And then gradually in my head, I work out, well, this button's called this and this button's called that. And that's how we get that.
It's exactly what I do.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll do, if the button is assigned to something, so that the issue I had the other day was the focus nav rockers. If I go into keyboard help and I press the up of the focus nav rocker, it tells me that I've pressed Braille wheel 1, but if I press down, it also tells me I've pressed Braille wheel 1. And if I press the select, the nav mode button, it also tells me I've done Braille wheel 1. So clearly they aren't all called Braille wheel 1. So that's when I tend to go into the factory JKM file and do a search on Braille wheel 1. and you suddenly find that actually there's Braille Wheel 1 up, Braille Wheel 1 down, and Braille Wheel 1 BTN. But Keyboard Help doesn't tell you that. You have to go into the factory JKM file and look it up.
And the factory JKM file is a treasure trove of information, actually. But don't mess with it.
Okay, yeah. Our computer with screen reader is a box which we will never know completely. I resume of this talk. We have one point before coming to special Braille displays. It was controlling your device, your computer with Braille display and NVDA. We are not so very well prepared in this. I just want to say two things. The first is what we have mentioned just before. This question of keyboard manager. You can go there in NVDA2 and look what commands do I have there and how are they defined. And I can add key combinations of my Braille display to it. And the other is what I was experiencing the last time is for NVDA, you have an add-on which is called Braille Extender, which gives you some nice opportunities. And I tried to find it in the add-on store inside of NVDA, and it was not offered to me. And then I asked a colleague, and he sent me a link to a website for especially a GitHub website of this add-on. And there you can download it. And then you have some options more for using Braille with NVDA. And we'll put this also in the summary of our meeting of today, where you can get the Braille extender for the newest NVDA version. I would like to come to this topic of special Braille displays. It was a wish of members of our European Braille working group. As I am from Germany, I would not have suggested this topic, and I was surprised about it. On the other hand, of course, I'm glad to have presented Braille displays produced in Germany. And I think it's important to look at what things do we have produced in Europe and not only in other continents. And in our meeting of today, we have these two examples, the Braille displays offered by HelpTech. And I have to say sorry, Mr. Armbruster said HelpTech is written in two words and not in one word, which I made wrong in the invitation. And then later we have the Braille displays from Papenmeier. So now I would like to invite Felix Grützmacher from HelpTech to tell us a bit what is the philosophy and the handling of HelpTech Braille displays, especially in this field of how can I control my device with these Braille displays.
Yeah, I'll ask you to unmute. Just very quickly while we do that, and I'm sorry to duck and dive a little bit, I did just want to acknowledge Nerman's comment in the chat while we give Felix a chance to unmute, and it was literally just to point out an app for Android called LEGERE. I think it's Legere, and it's a reading app for Android to respond to an earlier question. So I think we have Felix now.
All right, hello, yes. So to quickly introduce myself, my name's Felix Grützmacher, and I've been working as a software developer for HelpTech since 2008, when it was still called HandyTech, as all of you will know. Focusing on how to control devices, different devices, computers, mobile phones, tablets from our Braille displays, I'd like to zoom into two of our products, namely the Activator, which is a 40-cell Braille display for mobile use, and the Activator Pro, which comes in 64 and 80-cell versions, and that's specifically designed for the workplace. What we've made sure to do is to implement on those devices the HID Braille support over both USB and Bluetooth. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind when talking about controlling devices would be, what can you control? With these Braille displays, you can connect two devices via USB. For example, a JAWS PC on the left and an iPhone or an iPad on the right. In addition, you can have up to 3 Bluetooth devices connected, which may be HID or serial devices as you see fit, and they will all be connected at the same time. And then there's a special button or key combination, depending on how you've configured things, that you use to cycle between those devices. So you can, in the middle of working with your PC, you can decide to do something on your iPhone. You press the power button on your Braille display, for example, to switch to the iPhone and do something there, and then you cycle back. So you have a ring or rotor of devices that you can control at the same time. And adding to this, we've got what we call active split, which takes this quite one level up. You can press a button and then you have the Braille display divided into two segments. You have a left and a right segment, and you can assign those two segments at will to two of the devices connected. So for example, the computer can be displaying its information on the left, and the iPhone can display its information on the right. And you can adjust the number of cells that each of the segments takes up. So you have a little symbol in the middle of them both, which looks a little like an arrow pointing to the left or to the right, depending on which device currently has focus, meaning which device will accept keys that you press. There's a way to focus the left one and the right one easily with two buttons, or also with ATC, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But you can move that divider around. So, for example, if I wanted only 20 cells occupied by the iPhone to the right, and all the remaining real estate being relegated to the computer, you can just pick up that symbol with one of the cursor routing buttons, and you can put it somewhere else. And the two devices that are connected will get notification that their lengths have changed. We are able to do this with JAWS, NVDA, Supernova, and iOS. It's in the works for Android and will soon be available there too. So this is how you can set up active split. And then, of course, we have ATC, which is the active tactile control, meaning the Braille display has a way of knowing where your finger is currently reading. It has an active reading position. And one of the very interesting use cases we find many people are using is the automatic advancement, the automatic scrolling of text. So you are reading text, and as soon as you arrive at the end of the line, ATC detects that and it will automatically scroll over to the next line of text, which it can do for JAWS and in the internal note taker. But here we're not talking about internal functions today, but about controlling devices. In NVDA, this information is already being collected by the driver, and we're working on ways to make the ATC functionality available there also. And we're trying to do the same on iOS. But we already do have a mode that you can set where even if the screen reader you're using is not aware of ATC, this automatic scrolling still works. It will detect this internally, and it will just send the appropriate key presses so that the Braille display will then advance to the next line of text. When using active split, this is something that we ourselves find really cool. When you move your finger around the Braille display, when you touch the left segment, focus will automatically jump there. And when you touch the right segment, it will do that also for that one. So you can touch the segment you want to address. Like if your iPhone, for example, has the right segment occupied, you touch the right segment, and then the keys you press will automatically go to the iPhone. Another thing we did for Activator Pro for our workplace Braille displays is we've given it a load of function keys. So our QWERTY keyboard on it, it's integrated in the Braille display that has F1 to F24 available. So we have two full rows of function keys, perfect for scripting. And in addition to those, the Activator Pro has 10 keys that we call quick access keys. And these are as versatile as we could possibly make it, because there are a lot of functions that you can assign to them, internal functions. But what you can also do is you can record a macro. You can start recording, and then you can press any sequence of keys on the QWERTY keyboard and on the Braille keys, on cursor routing keys, like every sequence imaginable. You can insert pauses also, and that macro will then be assigned to that quick access key. So when you press that later, the macro will play back. For example, these actions can be quite complex, like opening Outlook, starting a new email with Control N, and filling out certain things in a certain way. This could all be part of one of those macros. Another thing I'd like to highlight about the mobile one, about the activator, the 40-cell one, is that it has a flap keyboard. So in its default configuration, when you have it in front of you, you have a Perkins Braille keyboard with dots 1 to 8 and 2 space bars and a little control stick, like a joystick thing. But you can flap open that Perkins Braille keyboard, and underneath is hidden a complete QWERTY keyboard, not with numeric keypad and all that, but with an FN key with which you can emulate things that are not usually available on the laptop keyboard. So you have a Perkins one, and you just flap it open, and you have a laptop computer keyboard, which solves the problem that was mentioned in the beginning, where the hand has to do a lot of traveling from the Braille display to the computer keyboard and back. So you just open that, and you have your QWERTY keyboard always available. Yeah, I think that concludes the tour de force, as you might say, of what we're doing regarding controlling devices from the Braille display. There are probably one or two ramifications I may have missed, but I would be curious if there are any questions up to that point.
Thank you very much, Felix. And your colleague Jürgen did say you would do an excellent presentation, and I have to agree with him there. We have a hand up from James Bowden, and I'm going to ask you if you want to unmute there, James, and ask your question. There we go. We've got you. Hello.
Felix, good to meet you again after a long, long time.
It's great to hear from you.
Felix, I was interested in your macro recording function. What speed does it send the key presses back out? Now, the reason I ask is often in Windows, you press something and nothing happens for a couple of seconds. And I wish it would be a little bit more clued up than that. So, for example, if I were, I don't know, in Microsoft Teams and I want to call someone, I could do Control E, wait for the thing to come up, type /, wait for that to come up, then type CA and wait for that to behave before I can actually type the person's name. So is there a way in the recording to either make it pause until something happens or pause for a particular time?
Yes, exactly. There is a way to insert a pause into the macro, and I don't have the specification right here in front of me how many milliseconds this will. I think it's a 200 milliseconds pause or 300. And if you press it repeatedly, of course, it accumulates.
Yes.
So you can have like 5 seconds pause if that's required.
Yeah.
And as soon as you press any key while a macro is playing back, as soon as you press any key on the Braille display, no matter if it's the QWERTY or whatever it is, it will immediately stop playing back the macro. So if something's really weird, you have, for example, suddenly you have a dialog box. Do you really want to delete your whole C drive? And there's a Y somewhere in your macro. There's a way to get out of there. So, yeah.
That sounds really good. Thank you.
I have a cheeky related question to that, actually, which is I've recorded my macro and it's playing back and it's all working very well. My macro is 50 keys long, and I discover, due to an update in my software, I need to add an extra keystroke between key 46 and 47. And I don't want to have to go and re-record the entire macro, all 51 keys of that macro now, just to get that extra key in. Is there a way to edit macros after they've been recorded?
Yeah, right now, to be perfectly honest, there isn't, but we do have that on our to-do list, and that will probably, since we have a binary format for the macro, so as not to expose passwords, for example, easily if someone stores them in there. So there's a little, not exactly encryption, but there's a little obfuscation going on here. But an editor will certainly be released at some point, maybe on device, maybe as a Windows app that you can load your macro files into, which will allow exactly that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I will just read that information from Jürgen for the benefit of people who can't access the chat or who are listening to the recording. He says it's 1 second per pause, and pauses can be chained together. So thank you, Jürgen, for providing that additional information.
Yeah, then Pappenmeier is a quite German name, not like Helptech or other very fancy sounding companies. And I have heard that Pappenmeier produced the first Braille display ever 50 years ago. I don't know, Matthias, if you know if this is right, but of course, since 50 years, your Braille displays have developed, and maybe you can tell us a bit what is the philosophy of using your Braille displays and of controlling the computer or the smartphone via your displays?
Yeah, hello together. My name is Matthias Schäfer. I work for the company Pappenmeier since 2024, and I'm an IT trainer. And yes, the Pappenmeier is manufacturer for Braille displays since 50 years. In the last year, it was 50 years. In 1975, the year the first Braille display from Pappenmeier came. And we have the line-up Braillex. All our Braille displays called Braillex in different models. We have models with 40 cells, we have models with 80, with 60, with 20, and now we have a new model. I think we give it to sell on the site city in May. It's the Braillex Flow. The typical thing on the Braillex is the navigation bar. Many Braille displays have in the front of many different keys, and the keys have different functions, and we have one bar in front of, and you can put it right, left, up and down in every direction in 2 positions. And we have a lot of functions on this navigation bar. We have models with Perkins keyboard. The new model Braillex Flow will also have it. And you can use it on the computer with JAWS, NVDA, or with Apple and Android devices. We have different keys for different functions. Last models, they have 4 function keys, 2 on the right and 2 on the left side of the Braille bar. And now in the new model, we will have 3 function keys on every side. And with this 6 keys and the combinations between these keys, we have the possibility to bring a lot of functions, a lot of shortcuts on the Braille display. We have a note taker included, and we can connect it with 4 different devices, 3 with Bluetooth and 1 of USB. Yeah, it supports the HIT standard. Yes, it's the new model, and it's the follower of the Braillex Live. And I think in the end of this year, we want to have new models for all our models. Also the 40 cell Braille display with 40 keys and with 80 keys, new models with USB-C and HIT standard. Yes, that's our new product. We introduced it in the last year on the site city, and we asked our customers which functions they will have on this Braille display, and in the moment we try to bring these functions they most wanted on the Braille display. Yes, any questions?
Thank you very much, Matthias. So another word of Braille displays, and I don't have a pub in my Braille display, but I was working with such a display with this navigation bar once, and the special thing is that not depending where your hands are at the moment on your Braille display, you have this bar over the whole width of your display, and you can touch it with your thumbs everywhere and make these commands which are possible with this bar. I think this is a really unique thing that no other company has copied so far.
I have a cheeky question, if I may, while we just wait to see if any hands come up. Did you say, I've only ever seen the Braille version of the Braillex line. Did you say you have a QWERTY version of the Braillex line available now?
We had, but the customers don't wanted it, and we took it out. I don't understand why. It was a very, very good project. I liked it by myself, but it was not so much interest on it.
That is unfortunate. I think there would have been great interest in the English-speaking market. So I'm sorry that we never got to see it.
I say in the company we must have such a model. Yes.
Yes, I think.
But
yeah.
that's a model you don't have to touch your computer.
I would have expected. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry it didn't sell. I'm thinking of that there are plenty of other products that have. Well, though there aren't, and that's the problem. There aren't plenty of other products, but the products that do exist in that category sell very well over here. So I'm surprised. But there you go. I thought I saw somebody put their hand up, but I'm not seeing their hand up anymore. So
it was Adele who
yeah.
put the hand up and down.
I think. Shall we come to Adele's hand at this point then? And I'm going to say a good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, or good evening rather, for those who are in Europe. I tried to analyze the main ideas about the meeting based on my knowledge of Braille displays. I've been introduced to Charles Braille display window as a teenager before being introduced to it. So. First, I'd like to thank you for this presentation. It's written on the chat or a comment about what I know about the world of Braille display based on what you have mentioned. A same key combination, or for example, space and some dots of the Perkins-style keyboard on such a Braille display means many things, depending on the Braille display, the running system, and of course the device on which it is used.
Well, we will certainly look at your comments in the chat there. Thank you for putting those there. We are going to move on now, but thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your comments on the session this evening. I don't see any more hands up. I will just check just in case, but I don't see them. I did see a couple of comments in the chat, not about Pappenmeyer displays specifically. I will just read them out though, since we're here. The first one was from our friend Nerman. Thank you, Nerman, who says Braille extender. This goes back to the comment about NVDA and input gestures and things. He says Braille extender is on the beta or dev channel, not on the official channel, and you may be able to change the channel. This is me adding on to what Nerman said. You may be able to change the channel in the add-on store in order to get access to that. And we also had something in from Vivian, who says, if your Braille device, and I think this is specific to German Braille or German speakers, he says, if your Braille device isn't showing all the characters you need, for instance, if you're reading names with exotic accents or letters, the German-speaking Braille Authority has developed an extended Braille table. And he says, most non-German accents are displayed as 2 Braille cells after the letter they are on. It can be implemented in JAWS and NVDA and is called detail. I'm not sure how to pronounce that in German, but in England it literally is just the word detail, D-E-T-A-I-L. and it's available on the authority's website, and he gives a link which is bskdl.org/detail. That is bskdl.org/detail. So hopefully that information is useful to someone.
Yeah, again, it was not our third meeting, and I'm again very surprised about all the things that we have heard, and so many people from so many countries interested in using Braille with a computer. I think using a Braille with a Braille display is the future. So we will still read Braille on paper, but read Braille electronically will be more and more important. And as more you are skilled in this and have good devices and know how to use them, you are more efficient and have more fun with Braille. And that is what we are working for. And I'm very glad about all the contributions of our speakers and all the comments of the participants who were here today. You are in the participants list. You will get information about the recording and the text summary of our meeting. And of course, the invitation of our fourth meeting, Wednesday in April, which
the 29th.
Is the 29th. Thank you, Oleg.
Right. And that's creating content, right?
Yeah, and it's about creating content. So writing text mainly on your Braille display. There are also some interesting options and features you should be aware of. And we are very happy when you are there again. And this is our last of the first 4 meetings on this topic. And after this, we will think about to continue this maybe in autumn, but this is not so fixed so far. And for now and for today, again, thank you to everyone. And for me, it is really a pleasure to belong to this nice and skilled Braille community. Thank you very much.